Hi everyone, my name is Mike Distilio, and currently I am the Director of Registration, Data Technology, and School Community Outreach. So I am using my School Community Outreach lens to bring this episode and this podcast to Washington Township. This is called the We Are Township Leadership Podcast, and we've had several throughout the year, and we have the fortune of working with Mr. Schatzman and his athletes today. So the way it works is I would like to take the moment to, and some of which we talked off camera, I would like to take the moment to introduce Mr. Schatzman, Coach Schatzman, and then you introduce Jaylen, Cole, and Steven. Okay?
Awesome.
All right, so Coach, some of the things that you don't know, you might know I have two kids here. You might know who they are. I don't know if you do or not. But Coach Schatzman, I've been fortunate that Coach Schatzman has been their PE teacher for the last couple years. My son, who's a senior, and then my daughter, who's a sophomore. And one of the things that I admire about Coach is I see him on the football team, and I've been in the district for 8 years. You've been in the district for what, about 6?
10.
10, but
yeah.
Coaching,
head coach for 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I've, no offense to the football team, but I've seen where it's been really, really low and really, really bad, and then I've seen what it is today. And that, to me, that doesn't happen by accident. I'm a former coach myself, way back in Virginia. I used to coach track and field. So, but I recognize the fact that what good coaching looks like and what good leadership looks like. So, what I look for in a person who's a leader is somebody that gives of themselves completely, and I think you do that, Coach. I respect the fact that you're constantly got the kids in the gym, you constantly have them working, but you're while you have them with you, you are constantly training them how to be good, productive citizens and good people at the very core, right? So what I get as an adult is that you guys are very talented football players, but as somebody who's kind of studied leadership, I understand what Coach is doing, and he's creating really solid, good-hearted men, okay? And that's his goal. And I think he recognizes that very much, and I think one of the best things that has happened to you recently is the birth of your child, and the ability for your child to understand the kind of man you are. It's a wonderful thing that you can give that back to your family. So I just want you to know how much respect I have for you, both as a person, as a teacher, and as a coach. And I think you're one of the fantastic leaders in the district.
Appreciate that.
No problem.
Beautiful Monday morning. Yeah, jeez. Keep going.
So Coach, if you can introduce our gentlemen here and then talk about the leadership you see in them, and then we'll start with the pre-planned questions.
Yeah. To my left is Jaylen Robinson. Jaylen's a junior. He plays running back and linebacker for us. He's a 2-year starter. Very talented player. In the middle is Cole Aquino. Cole is our quarterback. He's been a 2-year starter as well. Awesome leader, tremendous student, which we'll get into. And then to the far left is Steven Davidson. Steven's also a 2-year starter. He's a junior as well. Plays on the offensive line. Also a tremendous leader. All three of these guys do a tremendous job with kind of portraying what I expect a leader to look like. I'll start with Jaylen. Jaylen is like our high energy, emotional leader, I would say. He there's days when, specifically practice, middle of the season, end of the season, where it's not necessarily, it gets to the point where it's not as fun as it once was, and you're tired and, you're beat up a little bit from the longevity of the season. But Jaylen can provide that spark to our team, whether it's just in drills, in meetings. He has that ability to really spark the team emotionally, and you see that with his play on the field. I think, since he's played for us since last year as a sophomore, I think I've gotten more phone calls or text messages about, who is that kid? Like, he jumps off the screen because not only is he a good football player, but his energy and his enthusiasm, and he has that ability to bring that out of some people that might not have that internally. So he has that unique ability to do stuff like that. Cole's kind of our quiet slash just does everything right type of leader. He's doesn't miss anything. He's been a quarterback since he's 5 years old. So I think when it comes to the quarterback position, I think the number one attribute you look for is leadership. So he's a guy who's a role model for not only our players but people in our school, our community. He's like I said, he does everything right. Great student, straight A student. I think principal's list this past semester. So we say like total package. Like that's the type of kid that you want in your program. As far as a leadership standpoint, he's a guy that our kids kind of relate to and can go to if there's a situation that they might need something. I think probably the one person, one of the people besides these two guys, that would be the person you go to for some sort of advice. Steven's, like I said, a two-year starter for us on the offensive line. So all three of these guys played as sophomores, which is pretty rare for us. But they're a talented group of kids. Steven's kind of like our anchor on our offensive line, which offensive line, if football is very like an unselfish position. It's not stats. You're not getting written up in the paper all the time. Steven and really the whole offensive line itself, very unselfish group, very tight knit. I think Steven's kind of the head of that crew, which is important because it's kind of its own separate entity. It's a different type of people because, like I said, they don't get the praise that they necessarily deserve. Steven's also a straight A student who does really well in the classroom. Will be a guy who probably plays big-time college football, and a lot has to do with his leadership skills. And Steven has a way of being really competitive, which is a good thing in a lot of ways. He'll be able to get on you when the times, when there's time to get on you. But yeah, he's a kid that I think a lot of our guys look up to, especially the linemen, the bigger guys we call them. They have the ability to relate to Steven. And he's got a younger brother, Paul, who's a freshman now. So I see him with Paul, and even a lot of the other freshmen that are friends with Paul. I see him taking that ownership, and they look at Steven and these guys like they're God's gift to earth.
Right, sure.
Which they don't realize that, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
They look up to those guys.
Well, thank you for sharing. So one of the questions that I want you guys to think about, because I think Coach Schatzman hinted on this, it's I've watched enough football games, and while I can't tell who you guys are specifically on the field when I watch the game, one of the things that I noticed and is the reason why you went so far this year is because you guys are incredibly unselfish. It's very apparent, right? And I'm wondering, my philosophy, and Jaylen, you might remember this from Bunker Hill because the motto is still the same, that I believe that your purpose in life is about serving others, right? It's not about the wealth you get. If you guys go to college and play football, that's wonderful, but it's not about that. It's about who you're lifting up along the way in your journey. So, Coach Schatzman talked about some of the younger kids that are looking up to you guys and things like that. And since he ended with you, Steven, I'll put you on the spot. I know you thought we were going to start with Jaylen.
He's ready for adversity. He's ready.
Can you tell me, despite the fact that you're in a successful football program, what are things you do in your personal life to kind of give back?
So a lot of things I do is I volunteer. So I do junior achievement. So I go into the elementary schools and teach business to them. I also do the helping hands hoagie sale and stuff like that. I always want to do the little things, just be involved, and it's just fun because you're always with your friends and everything. Mm-hmm. And it just it really shows you how it helps people, and yeah. So I always try to volunteer for things like that.
Do you do anything for the younger football squad that like maybe Mr. Miraz or Mr. Dowd are a part of and stuff like that?
So we always do the youth football camp in the summer
Yeah.
at the field, and I usually make sure to go to all those.
Very good.
And it's really fun for the kids to like be around like the older kids and like,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's pretty fun.
Thank you for doing that. Cole, what do you kind of do to give back?
Just like Steven, I'm involved in numerous amount of clubs like him, JA, freshman transition and whatnot. Just to add on what he said, like seeing like just being around your friends and giving back to the community, it's really cool, and like it just makes an impact not only on their lives but yours as well.
Very good. Very good. Jaylen.
One thing I do at the school, a club called Peer Outreach. I involved myself in that multiple times, and also like out in the just out in the world, just when you're walking around, we're at the store, like always just have positive attitude and always trying to make people smile. It's cool because you don't know who's having a bad day. You
Right.
always try to, put a smile on their face. Maybe you can make their day, and then always like believe that, the positivity that you give out to the world is always going to come back to you.
I appreciate you saying that. So, what you guys don't know, and you just found out, like when Jaylen sat at the table. So Jaylen, you came. I know Jaylen from the past because I used to be Jaylen's principal at Bunker Hill, right? You started in 7th grade, or did you start in 8th grade?
I started in 8th grade.
Okay, so one of the things, and you all been in town since you were little
Yeah.
kids? So I think one of the things that's very difficult is when a child, for whatever reason, transfers to middle school. In the middle of middle school, you were at the tail end, and then how do you get friends, right? And I think we were still kind of just coming out of COVID at the time, right? Your 8th grade year, and we had our full lunches finally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard thing to do. And you said something about brighten somebody's day. So just to kind of paint a picture, like there would be cafeteria. The 8th graders would come in the cafeteria, and I'd be standing there, just standing in front of the cafeteria with Officer Hamilton. You know Officer Hamilton. You and
Yes.
your brother know Officer
Mhm.
Hamilton very well. You guys know Officer Hamilton? Great dude, right? One of my best friends. But what Jaylen would do was I'm a big basketball fan, can't play, but I love it. And you would always talk to me about basketball because I know you're into basketball too. But you would always shake my hand.
Mhm.
You always came and said good morning, shook my hand. You always asked how my day was, and most of the time my day didn't get bad until like after lunches, because that's when people would do stuff in middle school, would be at lunches. But I just, I'm glad you're here so I can tell you how much I appreciate it. Just the little handshakes and the little how you doings along the way. Nobody really wants to talk to their principal,
Of
but
course.
I appreciate that about
course,
you.
anytime.
Yeah, so thank you very much for doing that. One of the things that Muhammad Ali, the boxer who passed away a few years ago, says, service is the rent you pay for your time here on earth, and I think you don't escape this world without having to give back in some way, and if you don't, you haven't done your job, I'm wearing Cole Fitzgerald's wristband right here, and I know that was, he was a young man that was very near and dear to everybody on the team and your coaching staff, the whole community and stuff like that, and I really appreciated how the team kind of rallied around that cause as well, that was very important. Didn't know did you want to share anything at all about what the guys talked about, or?
Yeah, I think the more they're involved, I think they mentioned some various clubs, and we try to promote that within our team to be involved with certain things, whether it's other sports or just in general. As far as the Super Bowl hoagie sale, we try to make ourselves available.
You guys sell on the street? Is that what you do? Or?
Yeah, they love it. Yeah, I don't know how many they eat, but they're selling quite a few.
Well, we sold over $30,000 worth of hoagies, and there's going to be
awesome.
a presentation in March, and a lot of that is due to the remote sales that you guys are doing at the churches or on the street corners. So.
Yeah, I think that's important for me, just coming from growing up here, and seeing the kind of full circle effect, going to games when I was 5, 6 years old, and seeing the players on the field, it was like, that was like your NFL. You know what I mean? Like, before, the Eagles weren't very good when I was 5 or 6 years old, so it was like I was more excited to go to a Friday night football game, and then to see that impact when they work with our kids in the summer, the youth kids, and see their their faces. They really think that these guys are professional caliber players. So if you had asked probably kids if they'd rather meet Jalen Hurts or Cole Aquino, probably the majority of kids would be like, I want to meet Cole Aquino, because it's just more attainable. They see him, and then they see him out on the field. It's like they put 2 and 2 together as far as wow, I was just with that person. So it puts like a real life. They're not just football players. They're actually people and kids, and I think the biggest thing for us as a program is to be involved in the community and making sure that our kids are doing right. Now, we have 145 kids. Is every kid going to be on, like these 3? No, that's not realistic.
Right.
But, to portray what it should look like, I always say we have 99% of our kids are aces and do exactly what's, asked of them, and they're involved with good things. So these guys are a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think in the past podcast we had Gabe, we had Paul, I think there was another football player.
It was Andrew.
Oh yeah, Andrew Osborne.
That's right, thank you.
Yeah.
So that's what, total of 6 people, right? So, there are, what's neat about that is that Dr. Maselli and Officer Hamilton, they noticed the leadership in those people as well, and they're they cheer for the team. They're not associated with it on the ground level at coaches, but for them to see that too is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing. I'm interested, before we get into talking about ethical leadership, I'm interested in who do you find, like, how do you each define leadership, and who do you find that models leadership for you? So I'll start with Cole, right? So the question is, in your personal opinion, you're clearly a leader. I want to know, not ethical leadership yet, but what kind of leader are you, and have you aspired to be, and kind of who taught you that along the way?
I find myself as I would say myself as like a captain. Like,
Okay.
I'm the type of leader that people go to whenever they need anything, and like you say, if I make a mistake, I take myself accountable for everyone else. Like, I make sure that they don't make the same mistake as me.
Okay.
And also, like, just on an everyday basis, like, if any of my friends or whatnot need help, like, I'm always willing to do that first, then before I better myself.
Now, are you a person who's vocal, or are you kind of a lead by example kind of person?
I would say both, honestly, because if I know you, I'll definitely be vocal, and I'll definitely see you eye to eye, one-on-one, and then talk to you then. But if I don't necessarily know you, then my examples, I think, would lead you.
Excellent. And where did you learn that?
My family's really family-oriented, so I'm very close with my family. I would say from, like, my grandparents and my dad.
Okay.
They really show me true leadership and, like, how to be there for one another.
Excellent. Thank you. Jaylen.
I would definitely consider myself a guy who knows how to take accountability for something that he did wrong, or just showing somebody how even when somebody knocks you down, you could always keep going forward. You could always get up better and stronger, whether that's with emotions or something that's going on at home, to even having an injury. It goes both ways, in that you can just, there's nothing, you're only yourself, you can only hold yourself back.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to be vocal with that. I always I'm a goofy person. I love having a good laugh, but sometimes it's just times you gotta will it in sometimes, and you gotta work hard for what you wanna do.
Very good. And who taught you that drive, that work ethic?
Definitely my mom and my dad, because my dad always told me only yourself can hold you back, and we worked out together growing up and stuff like that. He showed me that like he taught me that. And then my mom, she definitely showed me how to take responsibility for my actions, whether that's not doing a chore, not cleaning my room, to doing schoolwork. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Steven, go ahead.
For me, I think leading by example is like my sort of thing, but I feel like there's a time and a place to like say like, hey, like, man, pick it up, come on, do better, you know what you're supposed to do, stuff like that. But definitely like just always trying to like be the person someone can look at and be like, oh, I got to do this, I got to be like this, and like just not be perfect because nobody's perfect, but really strive for that. And I feel like the people around you are really like, they'll see them and be like, oh man, he's doing that, I got to be like that too.
Excellent. And who taught you that?
Him and like my coach DeFranco and Coach Holmes, like they're really like perfectionist type people. They always want things to be like on point, and I really like that because like it's just like keeps everybody on track.
Very good. How would you define yourself as a leader?
I would consider myself more of a servant leader. I think growing up, having like great coaches and family, my dad, uncles, extended family that were really tight-knit as well, kind of similar to Cole, and these guys are all family-oriented people. I always saw I wouldn't ask anything of these guys if I wasn't willing to do it myself. And I always kind of stuck with me, whether it was just coaches and seeing the time, using Charlie Dowd as an example. I played for Charlie when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So I always thought Charlie was like, I would see him running from work to practice, and, he had 4 kids, and he was doing a million different things. I'm like, wow, this guy's he's like a superhero. Little in stature, but like he had a big presence around him where it's like, and he would get on you, about certain things. So I thought that was always like, that was my first experience with like, wow, this is like a coach, like someone who really cares and goes above and beyond. And then just throughout my years of playing, for certain coaches, I played for Tom Brown, I played for Mark Wechter, who were both, vital in my experiences wanting to be a teacher / coach. But I always thought, building relationships is the main thing. I think that's the most important thing. I think when I got hired as the head coach, my main purpose, specifically the first couple of years, was to build a positive relationship with, the elementary and middle school kids, because I knew down the road we might not be a championship caliber team right away, but I knew in 3, 4, 5 years, if I built a relationship with guys like this and made myself, visible, they would see, all right, hey, they know who the coach is at Washington Township. They know what type of person it is. So it debunks any myths about me or the program, and I try to lay out every single thing about what we're trying to accomplish, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that, and surrounding myself with really good assistants like Steven mentioned. Matt DeFranco is an alumni here, and Frank Holmes is an alumni here. People who genuinely care about Washington Township, not only the football program, but realistically the kids, because we were once in their shoes.
Yeah.
So I think that's important for me, is to have the ability to build relationships, positive relationships, and I think in turn, whether I'm the best X's and O's coach around and I can draw up certain plays, or if, I have the ability to make kids do certain things because they respect me, because they know the time and the effort that I've put in. And I think we've gotten to that point because of stuff like that. And you're only as good as your players.
Sure.
So I think that's a big thing, with success. I'm really not the same. I'm really not any different than I was in 2018 when I first started, as a person. I've obviously grown and learned, and, every day is a new experience, especially coaching football. But I think the biggest thing for us is building positive relationships with these guys, our youth. We do our middle school lifting. I visit each of the 3 middle schools, twice a year, to see the kids and, get a chance to see me, if I'm in Wawa or if I'm at ShopRite,
Right.
They know who I am, which, again, I think is important when it comes down to, if you're making a decision on whether or not you want to play football or whether or not you want to come to Washington Township High School. I think all these guys have probably had some sort of past experience where schools have wanted to, they're good players. So any school would be fortunate to have them in their program. But when they make a choice, I want them to think about, well, I know Coach Schatzman. Like, I know what type of person he is.
Mm-hmm.
I know what type of guy he is. And I think that's kind of what has gotten us to this point, which I think has been probably the main reason. along with obviously these guys being talented and being good leaders and carrying that over to the next group of guys.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think you guys are kind of immersed in sort of a leadership culture. Like, it's not an accident. It's Coach Schatzman's wonderful, but there's a very specific formula, right? And this is why, I like to think Dr. Maselli and Officer Hamilton and I were successful at Bunker Hill when we were there, but it's about this. You have a culture, you live the culture, and then you surround yourself with people who will take your culture to the next level. So, and in that is, you hire or you foster talent, right? So that's, that's how businesses work. That's how successful businesses work. Everybody unites for a common purpose. And if we have a little talent along the way and we win a little bit along the way, that's even better. That even harnesses that culture even more. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. So there are 6 qualities of ethical leadership. I kind of encapsulated this. It's not something unique to me. It's something that I've heard along the way. So I believe my computer can I borrow that piece of paper? So so ethical leadership, 6 qualities: accountability, courage, character and integrity, empathy, resilience, self-awareness. So I know, Cole, you had talked about accountability a little bit, and many of you kind of talked about accountability, but as far as being an ethical leader, is there anything other than accountability that you want to talk about?
Probably resilience.
Okay.
Because when, for example, one of our games, it was against Lenape, where we were down, we started off very, very slow. Mm-hmm. And the ability for not only me, but these guys around me to be resilient and not give up and keep moving forward, one play at a time, and not having the fear of losing. Because that game was very weird. We were down by that much, but we just knew we weren't going to lose just because of, I knew the guys I'm around and who I'm surrounded by, so I believe in every single one of them. So just having that resilience to keep moving and not giving up is really, really important.
Awesome. Steven?
I feel like character and integrity is a big thing for me. I always try to do the right thing when people aren't looking, and just be the person people can look at for things like that. And yeah, that's about it.
Wonderful.
I would like to talk about self-awareness, because people usually like talking about being courageous and stuff like that, but you gotta know your strengths and weaknesses so you can harness your energy into building and bettering yourself, and then when you can better yourself, you can better others. And I always believe that.
That's great. Coach?
Yeah, I would say for me is resilience is probably the biggest thing. Having the ability to, and they kind of mentioned this, having not only in a game situation, but having the ability to bounce back from a tough situation. All 3 of these guys have experienced tough situations throughout their course of their lives, but that doesn't define them. It doesn't, necessarily bring them down to a point where they can harness that. And as a teacher, you deal with 120, 130 kids a year. And each kid has their own story and has their difficulties. And I think that was the biggest rude awakening for me when I got into teaching and coaching was, I was a kid, came from a, great family and had friends who, had pretty good situations. So I didn't realize the amount of, things that went on in kids' lives. And when I got here, I was like, wow, this happens in Washington Township, the one of the, in my opinion, the best place to be, and it's a great community, but there's so many negative things that occur, and I think for me as a teacher coach, it's having the ability to be resilient and understanding of certain people's situations. So not everybody has it like me, or has grown up in my situation. So whether it's divorced parents or somebody passing away, whatever the situation might be, a lot of these guys have gone through tough scenarios. So when we talk about football, there's definitely some resilience factor there. Whether you're down in a game, it's almost like, and Cole mentioned the Lenape game where I think we were down 20-6, and we spotted them like 20 points in like the first 5 minutes of the game. So at no point did I or anybody realistically think, oh, we're going to lose. We just had the ability to, okay, we know, they've gotten kind of lightning in a bottle, but we've been through a lot more tough times than, being down 20-6 in a football game. So I think that's important, but I think that's anybody's life. If the ability to bounce back from certain situations, whether you interview for a job and don't get a job. I interviewed in the district 3 times before I got a teaching job. So it was like, all right, well, at what point do you say like, all right, I'm going to give up or quit? I knew I wanted to be here. I knew I didn't want to be anywhere else. I interviewed for the football job in 2017. I didn't get it. So I could have complained and said, well, so forth and so on. But next year, it fortunately opened up, and I was like, I'm put my hat back in the ring. And, obviously it ended up working out. But I think that's kind of the life lessons that these guys can see. There's high school, I think, in my opinion, is probably your best, one of your best 4 years of your life. It can help shape you for the next 40 years if you, do the right things and turn negative situations into positive. And, I think that's important.
Awesome. I like what you said about, the resiliency and stuff. One of the best documentaries I ever watched was The Last Dance. You guys ever see that?
Yeah.
So I loved it because probably like you, Coach, like I watched that whole last season of Michael Jordan, right? And I was fortunate to see Michael Jordan's last basketball game ever. I was there when he was a Wizard, right? When I lived in Virginia. But one of the things that he says is, like when he had a loss or when he felt disrespected, he always said, it became personal with me, and it sounds like the Lenape game became personal with you guys because, well, you knew you were just better and you had more to give, and I like that idea of that when you're faced with adversity, when you have the resilient person is the person that kind of harnesses that strength, whatever it is, wherever you get it from, whether it's anger, whether it's, commitment, wherever, but it's important. So
we talk about like that, like we were big in the proving people wrong.
Yes.
Now it's like to the point where we want to prove people right. So we've gotten, from when I started, it was like, oh, we want to prove people wrong. Like, all right, we're not, the Washington Township of old. Like, we're going to get this thing going. And it took time. So it was 2020, 2021. It was like, all right, we're starting to, become a little bit more successful. And now we're starting to prove people wrong. And then now it's to the point where these guys have high expectations and people around them have high expectations. So now it's proving those people right, which I think is, in my opinion, is the most satisfying thing.
Correct.
Is, I love proving people wrong, but proving people right is that much better because they want to see you kind of fail. A lot of people from the outside want to see you not do so well, especially when you have high expectations. So I look at that like the Last Dance with the Bulls, and obviously they had a lot of success. And Jordan, as many people love Jordan, there was a lot of people who didn't like him because he was so successful. So they want to see you fall when you're at the top. So I think that's, in my opinion, probably more satisfying than proving people wrong type of scenario.
And it requires even more focus.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The expectations are high. There's more pressure. When you're expected to win every game, it takes a toll on you. When you're not expected to win, and you do win, it's a good feeling. Mm-hmm. But if you lose, it's like, oh, we're supposed to lose, we're expected to lose. But when you're expected to win and you don't win, there's a whole different aura around you. Kind of like the Eagles, obviously. Their scenario, if they lose one game, it's, everybody's getting fired, quarterback's not good. And,
when they win.
Yeah, when they win, it's like there's still like some things that they pick out. It's mostly negative. But that's just how people are wired, and they want to pick out the negative things. But,
True.
If you keep being successful, keep winning and doing what's right, not many people can say anything.
Those are all the pre-planned questions I have. I just want to thank you, all 3 of you, 4 of you, for the time here today. It's really satisfying and very rewarding for me to be an educator like Coach and see good people that are coming after us. And it does my heart good to know that, you know, the future's in good hands with you guys, wherever that it looks like for you, for your families, you know. So thank you all for sharing today, and look forward to talking with you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.